What is up, my beautiful bros? Maine-iac here with Week 7 NFL Power Rankings, or at least my personal power rankings. This is purely opinionated, so forgive me if I rub your team the wrong way. I try not to. I try to be positive about almost every team. I'm stating this specifically because I noticed a view spike in the last video, and I noticed there was a dislike on there as well, so I just want to explain that. Whether you dislike it or not, if you don't agree, you don't agree. That's the beauty about football. We all have our own opinions. So we start off with this week's power rankings with an interesting situation, and that's so much being officiating and where it is currently. Um, I don't know. I didn't know how to handle specifically the Green Bay and Detroit situation where the refs in the whole second half were god awful against Detroit, calling helmet to helmet, two hands to the face that never happened, stuff like that. So I'll get to that when I get to those teams respectively, but until then, just stay tuned. We start off with the Miami Dolphins, who benched Josh Rosen and promoted Ryan Fitzpatrick in the game, but currently Josh Rosen is still the starter, so there's that. He had two interceptions, didn't play too well. Fitzpatrick threw a touchdown to Devontae Parker, I believe. The good thing about the Miami Dolphins, although they are bottom last, is their offensive line doesn't look as terrible as it did previously in the last few games. Obviously, their strategy is probably get a couple high draft picks. Hopefully, they can get Pittsburgh to get a high draft pick as well, because that's their pick as well, and get a couple really good players, and hopefully start turning this team around next year. And they have Cincinnati at number 31, who didn't play well at all. I believe Andy Dalton was held with no passing yards throughout the first quarter, which is a terrible statistic. The offensive line, the run game, neither has been solid. AJ Green should be coming back soon. That defense is horrible. The only reason why they're not last is because Miami is last. But when AJ Green gets back, good thing if you're a Bengals fan is the trio of AJ Green, Tyler Boyd, and Auden Tate should be productive. As long as they can figure out that offensive line next year, this offense could turn things around. Then you have Washington, who actually drops down one spot to number 30 after a win because they barely won against the Miami Dolphins, who went for two to win it at the end. And there's not much else to say. Keenum threw two touchdowns to Terry McLaughlin. I believe is how you pronounce his last name. I apologize if I'm wrong. But his completion percentage was awful. He just played awful. The run game didn't provide any support whatsoever. It's honestly, with a couple weeks to go until the trade deadline, they need to consider heavily trading Trent or their left tackle. I'm drawing a blank on his name and I apologize. Oh my god, I just had it. Anyway, they need to consider trading him for maybe a first round pick or something because they need a lot of pieces on this offense and defense, specifically more stellar pieces to pair with Haskins, because Haskins does have potential, but that offense is a little bit too lackluster. Maybe a first round tight end if you get one of those later first round picks for your left tackle. Then you have Atlanta at number 29, one of the most disappointing teams in the NFL right now, dropping 4 spots currently. One of the most talented rosters in the league on offense with Calvin Ridley, Julio Jones, Mohamed Sanu, Austin Hooper, Devontae Freeman, fucking Matt Ryan. It's just sad they haven't been able to put anything together. And they lost to Arizona on a missed extra point. I'm not going to blame the kicker. I know a lot of people want to be like, oh, Matt Bryant cost us the game. He missed the extra point. But you're facing Arizona. You shouldn't rely on just an extra point to beat a rookie quarterback. Your defense is supposed to be much more talented than that. But I don't know what has happened to Dan Quinn. That defense has collapsed since that Super Bowl. It's not as good. Last year I pegged it to injuries, but I'm not so sure what to peg it to this year. That offense should produce so much more than what it has produced when you have Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley, and Mohamed Sanu as your wide receivers. You should be one of the top offenses in the league, scoring about 30-something points a game, maybe even 40. Holy shit. There's so much talent. And you have number 28, the New York Jets, moving up 2 spots. One reason why the Washington Redskins drop down even though they win is because the Jets beat the Cowboys, and I respected that win hell of a lot more than I respect a win over Miami. Also, Sam Darnold looked really solid in his return from injury, I should say, with a protective gear over his spleen to prevent any further injury, which I appreciate him or his team making sure he wears that, because it would be a shame to see him go down again. They come off of they come off into a week to face the Patriots, so we'll see what New York is made of. But Robbie Anderson looked a lot better. Le'Veon Bell looked better. That defense looked better, and I believe C.J. Mosley should be coming back soon, which is incredible. And you have Pittsburgh at number 27, moving up 1 spot after beating Los Angeles Chargers. The Hodges played well enough. This game was dominated by the Pittsburgh defense, with Devin Bush having an interception and a fumble return for a touchdown, I believe, really early on in the first quarter. But LA came back, and if it wasn't for Phillip Rivers playing like dog turd, one might question how that game would have turned out, but Pittsburgh did get the win. They're on the uptrend. One reason why I didn't move up Pittsburgh more, and this is not to any disrespect to any Pittsburgh Steelers fans, is the injury to Stephon Tuitt. I incredibly respect his play. He is an amazing player. Very talented man. Really high character guy, too. He is an incredible guy. It looks like he's heading on IR, so I just want to feel out how they're filling his void more so. And then, if obviously you win another game, you're going to go up. And then you have Arizona moving up 1 spot as well to number 26 after a good win over Atlanta. Kyler Murray played better. David Johnson played pretty solid. Still a lot of question marks on this offense, but they're starting to round into form. But obviously Murray still holds onto the ball a little bit too long, and that is a concern for me. And at number 25, you have the Tennessee Titans, dropping 4 spots, as well as the Atlanta Falcons after being shut out by the Denver Broncos. Honestly, they probably should have dropped more. If there wasn't so many question marks about the teams below, they probably would have, in my opinion. But honest, I know I say honestly a lot, and I apologize for that, but teams probably 24 to 28 right now are close to dead even. They're really close. Tennessee benched Marcus Mariota after 2 interceptions to play Ryan Tannehill, and Mike Vrabel looks lost as an offensive head coach. You have talented running backs with Dion Lewis and Derrick Henry. Your wide receivers aren't that bad, and you have Delaney Walker at tight end. You should be able to produce, but obviously being shut out by the Denver Broncos doesn't bode well. And the defense didn't play much better, but held the Broncos to 16 points. So once this offense starts clicking, hopefully they do, they could sneak back into the playoffs. It's just not a high chance of that happening. And, Jacksonville moving down 2 spots after a tough loss to New Orleans. Gardner Minshew had a very bad game, but he is a rookie. He is a late round pick, so that kind of stuff's to be expected. Still, 24th is not bad considering everything they've gone through. This defense really needs to step up. And granted, they played well. They did play well this game, but they need to keep it going into the next game. This defense and this offense has so much talent around it. Once they start clicking together, they could come back and steal a wildcard spot. I don't see them taking the AFC South, but they could steal a wildcard spot. You have Tampa Bay moving up 1 spot, although they did lose to Carolina, and Jameis Winston played absolutely horrible. They did everything they could to hand Carolina that win, and they kept clawing back. With a few bad drops from O.J. Howard, Mike Evans, and Freeman not playing too well in the running game. Peyton Barber and Ronald Jones not playing too well in the run game. One thing I do like about the Bucs, and one reason why they do move up on a loss more so than that, and I'll explain that, is not so much they have improved in my standings. If I gave them like a Wonderlic score of my preference for teams, and let's say they had a 26, they'd probably still be at a 26. It's just that Tennessee kind of dropped below them, and Jacksonville kind of dropped below them. There's not much else to say. Like I said, these teams are pretty even. Jameis Winston, I made the mistake of starting him in my fantasy team for the first time ever, and I will never make that mistake again. New York Giants move up as well, although I do admire how they played. At number 22, the first passing touchdown against the New England defense this year went to Golden Tate. Definitely a good fantasy football waiver wire target if he's still available in your league. With all the injuries they had, they played well. The defense played well for the most part, holding Tom Brady to no touchdown passes, but allowing him to have 2 touchdown runs. Their defense got a fumble return for a touchdown as well and an interception. So there is that. This team, if they can get healthy, could win the NFC East, realistically. Denver moves up 5 spots, number 21, after a good shutout to the Tennessee Titans. Not much else to say here except for the pass rush looks a lot better, and Joe Flacco is being serviceable, which is good. And then you have Cleveland at number 20, staying even. They did the best they could to give the game away to Seattle, and they did. Freddie Kitchens was abysmal with his challenges and his play calling at the end of the game, whether he was calling plays or someone else was. The 4th down play where you run it in for a touchdown, but oh no, the coach challenges it right as the play's being ran, so the touchdown you just got doesn't count because he wants to review another touchdown that gets called short again, so that costs you a timeout, and then you run the same exact play that you just ran that you canceled out, so the defense was ready. It was just a stupid blunder of a mistake. And Cleveland's definitely on the downtick if they can't get their shit together. Chargers at number 19, moving down 1 spot. The run game couldn't get going. The offensive line doesn't look good, and the defense looks shaky. It does. It looks shaky. But the most concerning part about this is Phillip Rivers and the fact that he's struggling so bad with such a talented roster. Now, I'm not laying it all on Phillip Rivers. I did see Mike Williams drop a few balls that he should have caught, but still, you got to play better, especially if you're a quarterback. Oakland moves up 1 spot on a bye week, I believe. Still, Oakland's in a good position. Same with Indy at 17, who stays even. Good position going off into their bye week. Going off from their bye week, I think they should play well. Should definitely be interesting to see how Indy does after a week's rest, especially with Darius Leonard, I believe, was cleared for concussion protocol. I just wanted to mention that, so he should be playing this week, which gets me excited because Darius Leonard was amazing last year. And then you have Philly at number 16, moving down 4 spots because Zach Brown got fired. There's not much else to say about how they played. Zach Brown has 29 tackles and got fired. I don't know if it was because of his comments, but it doesn't look like they're having fun anymore. They blew it against Kirk Cousins, and Stephon Diggs ate him up for 3 touchdowns. It was an awful look for that defense. A very, very awful look. And then I get to the point. Detroit stays even with the whole NFL officiating controversy. I don't want to get too much into that. They played well, kicked a little bit too many field goals, but they scored a decent amount of points. 22. Or was it 23? 22. But still, you got to play better. You got to convert more. That's standard football. And then number 14, you have the Los Angeles Rams moving down 5 spots. I moved them down personally because they've lost 3 games in a goddamn row. And I value consistency. If you consistently suck, you're going to consistently drop. Jared Goff looked absolutely fucking horrendous. The run game without Todd Gurley looked horrendous. The wide receivers looked abysmal. I think Robert Woods had 2 catches for like 17 yards. He's like your second best wide receiver, and he's only going to get 2 catches for 17 yards. Jared Goff, what the fuck are you doing? You got the contract. Take the next goddamn step. I'm sick of the NFL being this way. You get a huge contract before you even prove yourself at all. What the fuck? Like, yeah, you are a serviceable quarterback, but now you're making so much money. Now you play like shit. God damn. The Rams deserve so much better. Not only that, they drop also as well because Aqib Talib went on IR, and that's a huge blow to their secondary. Then you got Carolina moving up 3 spots. Kyle Allen, undefeated quarterback. Not much else to say about that. Christian McCaffrey didn't play too well, didn't run too well, but he got 2 touchdowns, 1 receiving, 1 rushing, I believe. And that defense played really well. Gerald McCoy had a game. And then Dallas moving down 4 spots to number 12. Again, 3 losses in a row. Lost to the Jets. Dak Prescott didn't look good at all. That defense didn't look good at all. Really tough situation they find themselves heading into, I believe, with a game against Philly on the line coming next. And you have Buffalo moving up 3 spots. A very rare big gain for a team off a bye week, but still, Buffalo, they look good. They have one of the best defenses in the league. And getting Josh Allen an extra week to bounce back. He did play the week before the bye week, but still, an extra week to recover from injuries is always good, even if you play the week before. So it's going to be interesting to see how Buffalo handles coming out of the bye week. And you have Chicago moving up 3 spots into the top 10. I like this Bears defense. The one thing that concerns me the most is that damn quarterback situation. I do not trust Mitch Trubisky. I do not trust Chase Daniels, but I trust him a little bit more than Mitch Trubisky. David Montgomery's a solid-looking young running back, but with that offense and how it looks, it's not good, but that defense is so good, it's hard to lower the Bears because you look at that offense, you're like, oh, god damn, they're bottom half of the league, but then you look at that defense and you're like, oh, god damn, they're top half of the league, and it's just about finding a balance with them. And then you got Baltimore moving up 1 spot to number 9. I struggle with them. Lamar Jackson, he's known for trying to shake off that persona of being a running back or whatever. Not bad for a running back, I believe is a quote from him. But one thing that confuses me is you criticize people for judging you for being a quote-unquote running back when your passing statistics sucked last year. Your passing statistics sucked the last 2 weeks, and you run for a fucking 100 plus yards. What do running backs do? They run for 100 plus yards. Yeah, you passed a lot, but your team succeeded when you ran. You played like a running back who could throw, not a quarterback that can run. There is a difference, a slight difference, but still, he looks like a wildcat quarterback. But at this point, Baltimore, anything that takes for him to get his confidence back. If he has to start running it a little bit more for him to get his arm going like he did in week 1 and week 2, all for it, because I saw what he could do week 1. I saw what he could do week 2. This guy can throw. Maybe he needs to get some confidence with his legs, and I'm all for that. Tony Jefferson injury still concerns me, even though they didn't play too bad, but still concerns me. Then you got Minnesota at number 8, gaining 3 spots after a tough win to Philadelphia. And I do mean tough win because it's one of those games where you see Kirk Cousins play really well, but you then also realize Kirk Cousins doesn't consistently play really well. So if Kirk Cousins take a step back, can they still win a game like that? The defense played really well, but consistency is the issue here. It's Kirk Cousins' main issue. It's always been his issue. But I do like what I see out of the receivers. Stephon Diggs, Adam Thielen, Dalvin Cook looks solid. Kyle Rudolph is looking decent at tight end, but still, they definitely deserve a top 8 spot. Then you got Kansas City dropping 5 spots to number 7. Now, this is in no fault to Patrick Mahomes in that offense. That offense looks tremendous. I love how Tyreek Hill got acclimated back into the game with 2 touchdowns. Travis Kelce didn't look too bad either, although he did commit a pick play or 2 that never got called. Because apparently when Kansas City does it, it's legal, but when anybody else does it, it's not. But I digress. Biggest concern for the Kansas City is obviously their defense. They are facing a rash of injuries, and Tyrann Mathieu played really well against Houston, but this defense is a serious issue. They let Deshaun Watson walk all over them and walk the Texans back into that game, a game they should have won. And although Patrick Mahomes is really solid, threw for nearly 300 yards, and I believe he had 3 touchdowns, that run game was not good this week. And if Patrick Mahomes can't get run game support, and we've seen it with some of the best quarterbacks, even Aaron Rodgers back in the day, Drew Brees back in the day, If you can't get run support, no matter how good you are of a quarterback, you're gonna struggle. And we're starting to see a little bit in the last few weeks, including that Detroit game they won. They're starting to struggle. And if they can overcome this, it's going to make them that much more dangerous in the playoffs. So although they slipped to number 7, mind you, it's more so the inconsistencies on defense than anything else. They are still a top tier team. Definitely a Super Bowl contender. And then at number 6, you have the team that beat them, Houston. Carlos Hyde looked really solid after a slow couple games previously. Deshaun Watson, DeAndre Hopkins started out shaky together, but started playing better. The tight end position is performing much better than I thought possible. That defense is playing a little bit better, and that offensive line with Laramie Tunsil is playing so much more better that at this point, I have to say that first round draft pick they gave up is 100% worth it. You're protecting not only Deshaun Watson for this year, but those hits that you're taking off of him are going to help extend his career and are going to help the franchise down the road as well. So that's always good. And you have Seattle at number 5 staying even. Tough win over Cleveland, almost lost. Russell Wilson played fantastic. Tyler Lockett played well, but the player I was most impressed with wasn't either of them. It wasn't Lockett, it wasn't Penny, it wasn't fucking Russell Wilson. It was I'm trying to think of his name. I apologize, I can't think of his name right now. It was one of the younger guys in the secondary that was covering, I believe, Jarvis Landry. And yes, I was watching the game on TV, but I have the name slipping me. But they played really well. They have some young guys showing up, and I like that. I like that in Seattle. They're a team you don't really want to face because they can beat you. You can game plan for Wilson, but he can still beat you. There are a few players in this league that you can game plan for perfectly, and they can still beat you. And Seattle's one of them, especially with Russell Wilson. And you have Green Bay at number 4, like I said previously with Detroit, with the officiating fumbles at the end of towards the end of the game. That kind of gave them a free extra couple possessions. I'm not going to get too much into that, but they did earn the win. Aaron Rodgers did play well. The run game did play well. Aaron Jones is the biggest concern here with, I think, a fumble. Some failed easy catches. He had the easiest catch I've seen in my life. It was a little bit behind him for a touchdown, but he was wide open. He could have turned and caught it, but he didn't. All he did was turn his upper body a little bit. If he fully turned, he would have easily caught it. That would have been an easy touchdown, and then Denver would have never been in that position at the end. I mean, Green Bay would have never been in that position at the end. But still, Jamal Williams looks like he might start being the lead back going into the future. And I like what I've seen out of those young wide receivers for the Packers, especially that undrafted rookie that Aaron Rodgers has been lobbying for to play more. Maybe we'll see him more. Hopefully we see Devontae Adams come back soon. And you have San Fran moving up 3 spots to number 3. They made the Los Angeles Rams look silly. And I loved it. Although Jimmy Garoppolo didn't play too well, Breida and Coleman played amazing and ran over them. More so than that, though, San Fran's pass rush played absolutely incredible against the offensive line they're making the offensive line of the Rams look like a joke. And it was awesome. Without Staley and McGlinchey, that offensive line still looked good. This team is undefeated for a damn reason. And it's going to be interesting to see how far they can go. And then you have at number 2, New Orleans gaining 1 spot without Drew Brees, still 5-1. Holy shit. This team is capable of a lot. They shut down Jacksonville with Gardner Minshew. Drew Brees should be coming back very soon, and I'm excited to see what they can do after that. And then you got New England at number 1, currently undefeated. Played poorly on offense against the Giants, although Tom Brady did have nearly a 75% completion percentage, over 300 yards, and 2 rushing touchdowns. Oldest player in NFL history to have 2 rushing touchdowns, by the way. Defense played again, lights out. John Simon with an interception, stuff like that was all over the board. It's going to be interesting to see how they play against the Jets this week. And I'm excited for this week of football. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.